Wednesday, July 12th, and we are going to call to order the Planning Commission and Board of Adjustment meeting. David, will you please conduct roll call?
Ayers.
Here.
Brisbane. Here. Tice.
Here.
Zierden.
Here.
And Weaver.
Here. All right, all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And the next item up is to review and approve or amend the agenda. Do we have any amendments or a motion to approve?
I would move to approve the agenda.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Next item is approval of the minutes. Do we have any reviews or discussion on the minutes from the last meeting? And if we have a motion, please make one.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second on the table. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. All right, so let's begin the council liaison report. Steve Jensen, please lead us.
June 26th, we had a workshop on conduct and procedure. That was attended by several members of the public. The conduct part is for the council, staff, residents, at meetings, and procedural, Administrator Chansky did that part because we had requested it as a previous workshop just to have, with a lot of new council members, it's nice to have the documented procedure for the meetings. There were concerns from the residents that the city was attempting to infringe upon First Amendment rights on their social media accounts, which was not the case. Staff made it quite clear that's not the role of the city. There were changes made to, parts of the text and sections that will be updated and posted on the website. Other than that, I was not at the July council meeting, so I will let Administrator Chansky take that part.
Thank you, Steve. So July council meeting, relatively short meeting. Actually, it was less, kept it under an hour. Beyond the regular approval of minutes and bills and such, the council did approve they have a turbine at the sewer plant that powers our irrigation system. It's pretty much beyond repair, so we have to replace that one. Big items on the agenda was the 2022 audit report. So Mary Reedy with Clifton Larson Allen, who's our auditor, came and presented the 2022 audit. If anyone's interested in that, you can always go on to either the city website, it has the link to the YouTube video, or just go straight to YouTube, look up City of Breezy Point if you want to watch that. Otherwise, the audit report itself was included in the July 6th meeting packet, and we'll get it posted here shortly on the website by itself with the rest of our finances as required by statute. Nothing really to note on our audit other than as we, per state statute, once a municipality passes 2,500 in population, which we did in 2020, you have to move to an accrual from cash basis to accrual basis. So that was the biggest change in our 2022 audit. Other than that, there really was nothing to note. Had some just quick discussion on Night to Unite. That is August 1st. The mayor was just asking the council if they would be willing to designate some additional funds to support that. Traditionally, the police department gets some donations for hot dogs and waters and buns and things. They did approve up to $500 and then asked the Parks and Recreation Committee to discuss ways that maybe that can be enhanced and what ways the Parks and Rec Committee can be involved. They'll be talking about that on their meeting tomorrow. The council did officially move to away from holding the Board of Appeals and Equalization. So that's the meeting that's held every single year for people to come and kind of challenge their property their property valuation estimates. The council just felt like they weren't really have the skill set to really properly evaluate those challenges. And normally what happens is the Crow Wing County assessor is always here and the assessing staff is here. And a lot of times the council just takes the assessing staff's recommendation on whether something should be lowered based off of testimony from a property owner. So what they decided to do is move to what we call open book. So for in 2024, 25, and 26, for the next 3 years, what will happen is about the same time in March, April, when property valuations come out, the assessor will have a time here at City Hall where they'll come. There'll be people, just like before, you'll be noticed as to when that meeting is, and you can just come and meet with the assessor directly and make your appeal directly to the assessor, and kind of takes the council element out of it. And then the council did schedule a date and time for the budget kickoff workshop for August 1st at 1 p.m. And then the last thing wasn't on the agenda that got brought up. Council member, the Parks and Recreation Committee is working on getting up some new signs for the parks, pretty much some no smoking, no drinking signs for all our park properties. They've talked about for a couple meetings, and Councilmember Maroney just asked the council to pretty much give a pre-approval up to $500 for those signs, so that if the committee decides to move forward with that, they can just get that moving and get those signs out there, considering that we're about halfway through the summer now. So that is in a pinch, the July 6th council meeting.
Thank you. Any questions?
No.
All right, we will begin with the open forum. This is an opportunity, if you do not have anything on if there is something on the agenda, please wait for that moment when we bring that up to approach. However, if there is something that is not on the current agenda that you would like to speak about, please approach, identify your name, address, and go ahead and share with us what your information is. All right, I don't see anyone approaching, so we're going to close our open forum at this time and move on to new business. The first item is a public hearing for a variance application V23003, Chris Erickson and the Dedener Trust at 29206 Piney Way, Breezy Point, lots 20 and 21, Edgewater Beach, parcels 102111067 and 102111068. It is a request for a variance to expand a legal non-conforming use within an addition of a 276 square foot screened porch in an R2 rated zone. So we will go ahead and start with the hearing here. Let me get to that page. All right, and to start off with, if the applicant would like to approach and announce their name and address and state their case.
Good evening. My name is Chris Erickson. I live on 29796 Mohican Circle in Breezy Point. I'm here today on the behalf of Jerry Dettinger and his property, looking for approval on a project proposed as you read. I guess to start, we feel this property is a legal non-conforming structure. Back in 2016, there was a variance granted to do some work on the building that actually furthered the nonconformity. Today I'm bringing you a project that actually is within the ordinance with what we are doing. So I'm hoping that you would consider this project as approved.
Does anyone have any questions at this time for Chris?
And what year was that on the,
On the previous
those
variance?
previous, yeah.
I want to say it was 2016.
yeah,
There is city sewer, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
You can see our addition there highlighted is within the setbacks. And the non-conforming portion of the existing building is on the south property line there.
So as we review this, part of requesting a variance is knowing what the practical difficulty is. Based on what you have listed in here, it sounds like the practical difficulty is simply the fact that it is a non-conforming lot.
Correct, predating the ordinance, and then, excuse me, we just feel that the proposed project, being within the ordinance, and not furthering the already accepted, nonconformities, that it's that way, so.
Right.
Actually, it looks pretty nice. Pictures.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I said it looks pretty nice. That kind of fits in.
Yeah, it fits in. It was, like all, additions, they're meant to not look like an addition. So trying to blend it in with the existing building. It's really not impeding on any other, neighbors' sightlines, lighting, and nothing really is affected by this small open air screen porch is what it is.
Does anyone have any other questions? All right, if we have more for you, we can bring you back up if that's okay. Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to a staff review. Jerry, can you lead us?
This is variance request 2023-003. The applicant is the Dedninger Trust. Chris Erickson on behalf of the trust. The legal descriptions is lot 20 and 22 of Edgewater Beach Addition. The address is 29206 Piney Way. PID numbers are 102-11067 and 068. The zoning of the property is medium density residential, R2, it's sewered. The applicable codes is 153.007, 153.032, 153.044.045, and 153.120. The request is to construct a 276 square foot attached screen porch to existing dwelling, which is considered a legal non-conforming use. The property is Pelican Lakeshore property at 29206 Piney Way. The property is 29,842 square feet. The impervious coverage today is 20.9%. The existing dwelling is approximately 2,000 square feet, and it was built prior to zoning. It is 2.7 feet from the south property line. Variance to a large pre-existing non-conforming structures by increasing the height and adding a chimney was approved in 1995. The dwelling is considered, again, a legal non-conforming structure because it is less than 10 feet from the south property line. Zoning of the property is R2. Lot size is required for 20,000 square feet. The OHW setback is 50. Side setbacks are 10. Impervious coverage is 25%, and the height is 25 feet max. The variance is a legally permitted deviation as provided by MS 462-357 subdivision 6, as it may be amended from time to time from the provisions of this chapter as deemed necessary by the Board of Adjustment, when the strict interpretation of the ordinance would create practical difficulty and be impractical because of circumstances relating to lot size, shape, topography, or other characteristics of the property, and when the deviation from the ordinance with any attached conditions will still be in keeping with the spirit and intent of the ordinance. Variances cannot create a land use not permitted in the zone. Variances shall be decided within a reasonable time with consideration for the following: the Strict interpretation of the ordinance would be impractical because of circumstances relating to lot size, shape, topography, or other characteristics of the property not created by the landowner. The deviation from the ordinance with any attached conditions will still be in keeping with the spirit and intent of the ordinance. The land use created by the variance is permitted in the zoning districts where the property is located. The variance will not alter the essential characteristics of the locality, and the variance is not for economic reasons alone, but reasonable use of the property does not exist under the ordinance. The applicant contends that the practical difficulty is. I think we still need to determine what that practical difficulty is. Impervious coverage is proposed to be 21.8%. The proposed addition is located within the building envelope. The use is consistent with the residential uses in the area. And the city attorney has advised that the expansion of a non-conforming use is allowed under state law, provided that the variance meets the practical difficulties test under Minnesota sections 462.357, subdivision 6, subdivision 2. The following may be used to support denial of the variance request. The Planning Commission Board of Adjustment finds that no practical difficulty exists. A detached screen structure could be constructed within the building envelope. The following may be used to support approval of the variance request. The property pre-exists subdivision and zoning regulations. The impervious coverage does not exceed 25%. The practical difficulty is, if approved, the following may be conditions of approval. Minimum elevation of lowest floor, 1210. Building permit to be obtained and comply with applicable building codes. And consolidation of lots 20 and 21 should be part of the approval. The board may by resolution choose to approve, deny, or modify the request of variance. The resolution shall clearly state the practical difficulty and the reasons for the approval, denial, or modifications of the variance.
All right, so now at this time, we can open some questions up for Jerry.
So in 95, they approved the non-conforming structure with the fireplace, correct?
They approved the addition of a fireplace and I believe some height.
But not the actual footprint.
Not the fireplace would have been, the actual footprint would have been increased.
But the house didn't get any bigger.
The house at that time was a non-conforming use, it is today too.
Right. Meets all the setbacks other than the south side.
Pardon?
It meets all the setbacks except for the south side, so.
Yes. I think if you look at the survey that's included as part of the packet and is on the screen, the dotted lines that are there indicate the building envelope or what the conformance to the ordinance would be. So anything within the dotted lines would conform to the ordinance.
So essentially, the only reason why we're here today is the fact that this was built pre-zoning. It's meeting all the other conditions except for that one setback. Is that essentially the?
Right.
Yep.
Where would the deck be going then?
Pardon?
Where would the deck be going?
The
Supposed to be moved.
addition, I believe, is they're taking off a deck and putting an addition. And I think if you look at the screen, David has got the pointer on the proposed addition.
We don't know what year the house was built itself,
I do not know.
but
We're assuming it's predates 1990. It's probably there for many years before that.
so isn't that the practical difficulty part of it?
I think you have to determine whether that's the practical difficulty.
I mean, it's just kind of reading the definition of a practical difficulty due to the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property that was not created by them, which I think is the case in this. It was already pre-existing that. But it meets all the other criteria, so it's.
Correct, the impervious
Yeah.
setbacks, et cetera, other than the south one.
We're not dealing with something that's breaking any other of our current ordinances here. Does anyone have other questions, thoughts? All right, well then we will open it up to public forum. So if anyone would like to share their opinions on this, please approach the front here and microphone and announce their name and address, please. Pending no public input, we will close the open forum and close, well, before we close the public hearing, did anyone have any other questions for the applicant that we might want to bring up? No? Okay, so we'll close the public hearing portion and move to our discussion and potentially a motion. So I'm looking at this and just kind of doing our normal checklist of what meets a practical difficulty.
It's pre-existing.
I think, yeah, just reading it word for word, if the property owner proposes to use this in a reasonable manner, but it's just not able to, due to the circumstances that are very unique to the property that was not created by the landowner, that creates a practical difficulty. I think it does appear to be within the essential character of the locality, which is another piece of it. It looks like this is conforming to the look and feel of that particular lot. They did not make economic considerations at all part of this, so that is certainly in part of making sure that we're following the practical difficulty rules.
And removing the deck to put on a screen porch the same size seems to, not that it's the same thing, but it's kind of.
So at this time, does anyone have any other discussion or a motion anyone would like to make?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
To Jerry? On your recommendation, it says the minimum elevation of the lowest floor is 1210A. Is that the floor of the house or is that the floor of the garage?
Lowest floor elevation. Lowest floor elevation. That's required by floodplain regulations.
Got it.
That should not be a problem on this lot.
Right. I was just asking because I saw the steps or the stairs that go down into the new portion of it.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
I would move to approve this application to include the conditions outlined in the city planner's memo to us.
So to read through then, we have a motion to approve the variance based on, one, that the property pre-exists the subdivision and zoning regulations. Two, the impervious coverage does not exceed 25%. It's at about 21.8. The practical difficulty is that it is due to the lot size and this is a reasonable manner of using the land, and the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property that was not created by them. And number four, if approved, the following may be conditions of approval. We're seeing the would-be conditions of approval, that the minimum elevation of the lowest floor is 1210. The building permit must be obtained and comply with all the applicable codes, and needing to consolidate lots 20 and 21 Edgewater Beach. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay. Oops, I already said aye.
Motion has passed.
I was playing Simon Says.
All right, so. Moving on to the next item up, we have a public hearing for a conditional use permit application C23004, Mark Pedig, BPMG LLC, at 8101 County Road 11 in Breezy Point, lots 329, 330, and 331 on the 15th addition to Breezy Point Estates, to construct a mini golf course and clubhouse that is a recreation facility / public zoned in C commercial. So at this time, we will open up the public hearing and invite the applicant to come up to the podium, state their name, address, and share with us the request.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Pedig. I am the owner of the RE/MAX office located at 8101 County Road 11, Breezy Point. Along with owning that building, I had also acquired the 3 lots to the west of that building, and recently have come up with the idea of bringing some sort of recreational facility for all ages in the form of a mini golf course to Breezy Point. You know, we looked at it as a great opportunity to kind of expand in a public area that outside of the major golf courses is maybe lacking a little bit, especially when you look at uses for children and maybe items that are a little more ADA compliant and friendly. And yeah.
Does anyone have some questions here from Mr. Pedig?
Well, you say you're gonna have like 300 people a day. You have 16 parking spots. It seems a little tight.
So
I
part of our,
suppose people rotate through in a couple hours or.
correct. You know, one of my partners that's here today, I'm sure he'll speak during the public forum as well, actually owns a mini golf course in Cross Lake, and will bring a lot of insight on that. He is who designed and developed the course that you have on the screen right now. One of our goals with having 16 parking stalls, we recognize the number of golf carts side by sides that are utilized within the Breezy Point community, and with that, making our parking lot golf cart friendly, where every parking stall should hold at least 2 golf carts as well, and recognizing that there is going to be, we feel, a good portion of people visiting.
Walk-up traffic.
We'll have some walk-up traffic, but we'll have plenty of traffic coming in and means outside of your standard vehicle transportation.
Is there a turn lane there? I can't remember. I've driven by them 1,000 times.
No.
No.
What's the seasonality of this?
We're trying to keep it seasonal, just due to the fact that we're not going to be able to utilize that during the winter. Open as early as we can in the spring, probably aiming towards beginning of April, mid-April, and then wrapping up, sometime mid-September, late September, kind of as we see weather adjust.
And as far as working with the designer, is it the individual that you mentioned that has a course? Do you have a landscaper or anybody else that's working with you on things like drainage and all of the other conditions?
Mike is who also will be doing a lot of that work as well, as he owns the Crosswoods Golf Course in Cross Lake as well, and has the means and expertise in that field.
So there's quite a few trees on there, on these 3 lots, or it'll be clear cut or what?
Our mission is to save as many as we can, and if not save, replant with something that's maybe more aesthetically pleasing as well. Right now, currently, I'd say about 85% of the trees are popples in there. And if we could bring something that maybe brings a little more character, I think would help out the property. So, but our goal is to save as many of the trees. For example, right on the corner, right next to my office, there's a giant oak tree. We'd love to save that tree if we could, you know.
Actually, the golf course is on the other side, not on the road. It's actually, the parking lot's on the road on 11.
Correct. And some of that is by design. You know, I recognize in some of the, you know, we were looking through the notes, maybe having the parking lot to the south. Our thought is really to try to keep as much away from the backside as there is a golf course back there, to try to keep the clientele as far away from the golf course as possible. And with the neighboring building to the west, we figured it'll keep a lot of the traffic and the people away from that neighboring property and closer to the property that we already, or I already currently own.
So Mark, these lots are west of your Remax office?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
not south, but west.
Not south, but west, correct. Yep. Yes, as you see on the screen, it'd be the highlighted portion to the right.
And I read this in here, but just for the record, you did say that you will connect to city sewer,
Correct, yep.
a new well, brand new well.
Brand new well, correct. And one of the other pieces of having the parking lot towards the west portion of the lot is we also recognize the stormwater piece of this equation. And when you have a parking lot of that size, obviously you have to accommodate for a large amount of water. The way the lot currently flows from west to east, we figured it would be best suited to have that higher to give us more room to catch water from flowing into that neighboring property. And with the current Remax office of mine, much of the property there is paved on that, would be the west edge of the Remax property. We wanted to stay as far away from that as possible to help capture stormwater.
So the stormwater will flow into the pond that's
Into
in the
pond,
course?
correct. And our goal there is to create a filtration system to where it cools the water before it flows, filters out impurities, and drains in. We will be building up, not tremendously, but slightly along that easterly portion of the lot to make sure there's a little bit of a berm or buffer to also help capture that and keep that from draining onto our lot and potentially into any public right of way.
Is it big enough to hold, do you know? Like the 100-year flood or?
What I'll probably do
rainstorm?
is defer to Mike on that when he has an
Okay.
opportunity to speak, but I think Mike is more on the side of it. But that would be our goal, is to capture a significant amount of water, correct?
You'll be able to keep 50% impervious?
Yes. So in our conversation with Jerry prior to
Yeah, I see that, but-
prior to the submission, it was the determination that the landscaping would not be considered impervious coverage, because we're not going to be really affecting the ground there and impeding water from passing through.
Do you have any concerns with extra foot traffic along the road?
So currently, there is a walking, and I won't say a walking path. Currently, the four-wheeler traffic, golf cart traffic, has created a pathway through the right-of-way, through the road ditch there. We anticipate that being utilized, and with that, I think that'll help keep people off of the county road as much as possible as well.
Hey, David, can you show where, like, you know, I see the drawing here, but like where 11 sits, and is there where that's going to come out, you know, come in and out, where it sits on the lot?
So Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, I think on this County Road 11, it's on the south bottom head, this is 11?
Correct,
Yeah.
correct, yep.
So this is County Road 11 here, so they enter here.
Okay.
So you're looking towards, this one, north is on the bottom, south is on the top, west is to the left,
Yeah.
which is the east is to the left, west is to the right.
When you mentioned having 2 golf carts per spot, how do you do that?
Just based on the width. So what our thought was is putting a, you know, if our parking lot is striped white, our thought is putting a yellow stripe in the direct center of every stall and not have it extend all the way through to confuse normal traffic, but to have it maybe extend 6 or 8 feet to indicate there are additional slots within that. You know, we don't want a golf cart taking up a full car width either. I think in that space, we obviously would hope to ask people to accommodate for others as well. And maybe even have indicators of some sort of, you know, a golf cart with 2 arrows or something to kind of show that indication that there's room for multiple units in one space.
So golf carts are 4 by 8 feet for dimensions?
You have to come on, Mike.
Please state your name and address and
Might as well do this.
Mike Stone, 35878 County Road 3, Cross Lake. So golf carts are 4 by 8 feet. Our parking spots are oversized. They're 10 by 20 is what we set them up for. So you have 10 feet, you can fit 2 4-foot wide golf carts side by side in those spots. So, I mean, we could make the, you know, probably go down to like 9-foot stalls on our lot, but we thought you know, with all the SUVs and trucks and everything up here, that the bigger stalls are better. And, you know, also just speaking to the parking, so I've got the mini golf in Cross Lake. We've got 18 spots there with no golf carts, and that's perfectly, you know, maybe there's 2-3 times a year, you know, during the holidays when it's just kind of crazy and the whole town is crazy, but all the other weekends, people are coming and going, and, you know, several hundred people a day, and there's really no issues there, so.
thank you.
Mike, do you want to comment on the pond?
Oh, sure. So the stormwater plan there, I was thinking more like, you know, and I don't know what Breezy Point's specific, you know, I was kind of planning on like a 10-year event for storage, but we'd kind of have the primary treatment in the pond on the course, and then that would basically slow down, allow sedimentation in that pond. Then if, you know, a bigger event, then it would overflow into a little berm, and then we'd have secondary treatment, so it would kind of flow down that, slow it down some more, and then just continue on its way down there. So I feel like that's really good. And then we're gonna have also a lot of just natural little rain gardens per se on the course itself. One way to think of a mini golf is just like a roly-poly sidewalk. You know, that's basically, it's a sidewalk that meanders through that property, lots of just really heavy with landscaping, a lot of shrubbery. It's gonna be very aesthetically pleasing. I mean, I know we're taking some trees out there, but the trees that are there, they're not very good quality trees. There are a few oaks that we're gonna try to keep on the property, but then there's a lot of oaks that are just dead or dying too. So when you really get in there and see how it is, but we want to keep as much buffer with the golf course and the neighboring properties as possible. But mini golf is a pretty low impact type business. So.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Mark, is the golf course the entire boundary to the south?
The entire boundary to the south. So the south would be where it says stormwater at the top there. It does not go to the entire boundary. We're trying to keep as much of a buffer on that south side as possible. I believe around where the R is, the last R in stormwater is, you know, if you went another 15, 20 feet, or maybe 40 feet to the south is where there's a green currently. And so our goal is to keep a green on the white birch, or not the white birch, the traditional golf course. So our goal is to kind of try to create a natural barrier there, just in case somebody has an errant ball that comes in.
Any other questions right now?
My only question was, how do you figure 50% impervious on all those kind of designs? I mean, it's an educated guess, or?
Measure it.
I didn't bring it, but I have a blow-up of each hole.
Oh,
And basically, I counted the block, you know, like if it's, I counted the blocks within each hole, right? So on average, though, each hole's 200 to 300 square feet. So if that gives you
Okay.
some feeling for, but, you know, there's certainly smaller ones and there's some bigger ones, but I kind of went through the whole course and, you know, so we feel really comfortable with, you know, we can make the holes whatever size we wanted. We made them as big as we could and still stay under the 50%. But if needed, we can shrink them down where we need to, just to make sure we meet that criteria.
And it's all grass, not artificial turf, or,
This would be artificial turf, would be the
Oh,
playing
okay.
surface, yes.
Okay.
But it would be all natural, like we're talking like wood chips and rock mulch and shrubbery and grasses in between the holes, so. yeah.
okay. So the greens are artificial,
Correct, it's a concrete base,
okay.
so, and then with artificial turf on top.
Is there a theme to this? I know a lot of golf courses have themes. Is there a theme, or is this just more of a
Yes,
natural?
we actually have spent a lot of time on the theme. We feel a lot of the courses in the area have really utilized the Northwoods, Paul Bunyan, you know. We are actually going a different direction. We are going to be, or would like to be, the Breezy Point Surf Company, and do somewhat of a surf theme, lake theme, try to pull a different vibe than everybody else in the area. You know, and we're taking several things into consideration, like maybe doing bluegrass or blue turf instead of green turf. And, you know, a lot of our holes, Mike has spent a considerable amount of time on. Each one has its own theme, you know, whether it's a shark theme or a surf theme or a wave theme, you know, what have you. Each hole is going to have its own theme, kind of its own story, to try to make it a little bit more of an experience than just go out, putt the ball a few times and move on. You know, our clubhouse, very rough draft of it. We wanted to give an idea of the size as much as anything, but we'd love it to look like a quaint California surf shop in the woods. You know, kind of utilize that portion. Our marketing, we're looking at, you know, what are some good ways we can draw attention, you know, whether we you know, find an old Beetle wagon with a surfboard on top, just something that's not, I'd say not typical, but at the same time still somehow conforms with the lakes area. You know, we're not doing space aliens. We're doing something that ultimately people are doing on the lakes and enjoying the lakes, and we feel it'd be a fun theme for Breezy Point.
it's not going to be yellow, blue, pink?
No.
Okay. I mean,
No.
And when would you hope to open?
You know, a lot of it is based upon the approval process. In all reality, we would love to be open by Memorial Weekend next year.
Okay.
Now, it's probably an aggressive timeline. I think realistically, if we could be open by the 4th of July, that would be an amazing goal for us. But if we can start the process this fall, it just depends on how much and how quickly we can progress, and you know what items we can tackle when there are no restrictions, frost restrictions, and whatnot to take into consideration.
Is there a reason you put the entry on the furthest west corner versus the opposite side?
There is, and it goes back to the stormwater piece. Initially, we were going to bring it in and try to combine it with the current RE/MAX office. But I was quickly to note that the flow of that parking lot would then flow directly through the current parking lot of RE/MAX with no barrier moving forward, and I felt that probably presented a stormwater risk. You know, we do have a plan drafted if that is a route that we would, you know, that is desired. But at the same time, we did it solely on the basis of stormwater management at this time.
Okay.
because it slopes east, doesn't it?
Yeah, it slopes towards the east. There's a survey in here, and I think it would show the elevation changes. It's not a drastic elevation change, but If I were to count to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, probably 9 feet. I can't quite read it through the size of my sheet, but from the very westerly edge towards the east. So it'd probably be about a 6-foot flow if we were to put it to that westerly edge. Now, obviously, we could change the grading and make adjustments as much, or easterly edge, as much as we can, but that would probably take a substantial amount of dirt movement as well.
What's the vision for the shop? Is there going to be items for sale, merchandise, food? What do you envision for the shop?
We envision a retail space. We envision doing merchandising, trying to promote Breezy Point as much as we can. We would love to do a shaved ice or an ice cream or something to tie into the mini golf experience as well. That portion of it, still a little bit to be determined on which direction we want to go there, but we are going to do some sort of summer, how do you cool down on a hot day type piece.
So I see there's some existing shed, carport. You own that too?
We do not. That's currently encroaching from the neighboring property. We did have a discussion with the neighbor. She does know that they are encroaching on the property. And they are temporary structures, not permanent structures. So there's no foundation under those.
So those won't bother with your mini golf thing?
As they currently sit, I don't believe they inhibit our plans at all. Obviously, it'd be nice to have it notated that they are encroaching just for terms of not giving up that property in the future.
That house is only, or the building's only 12 feet from the property line too.
Correct. That actually was a former bakery.
Oh, that place, okay.
Correct.
Any other questions at this time? We can always call them back up if we need to.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to staff review. Jerry, will you please lead us?
Again, this request is conditional use permit application 23004. The applicant is Mark Petag, BPMG LLC. Property address is 8101 County Road 11. The PID numbers are 101 615 84 85 and 86. The legal descriptions are lots 329, 330, and 331, the 15th addition to Breezy Points Estates. The zoning is commercial. The applicable codes is 153.040, 153.044, 153.045, 153.062, and 153.119. The conditional use request develop and construct recreational facility, public, a mini golf course with a clubhouse. Applicant has submitted a conditional use application to develop a mini golf course and clubhouse on 3 vacant lots adjacent to County Road 11, presently zoned commercial. Findings upon review of conditional use application, the commission needs to consider the findings as required in section 153.119E. In review, the commission should state whether or not the findings is acceptable towards granting the CUP if applicable. The following findings must be met. The use or development is an appropriate conditional use in a land use zone. The property is zoned commercial, and the request is appropriate under section 153.044 and 045. The use or development with conditions conforms to the comprehensive land use plan. The use with conditions is compatible with the existing neighborhood, and the use with conditions will not be injurious to the public health, safety, welfare, decency, order, comfort, convenience, appearance, or prosperity of the city. The following must be considered. The conditional use should not be injurious to the use and the enjoyment of other property owners in the immediate vicinities of the purpose permitted on the property. nor substantially diminish or impair property values in the immediate vicinity. The conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding vacant property for uses predominant in the area. The conditional use will not create excessive additional requirements at public cost for public facilities and services, and will not be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. The use does not require any additional public infrastructure. The conditional use will have vehicular approaches to the property which are so designed as not to create traffic congestion or interference with traffic on surrounding public thoroughfares. Proposed use is in keeping with the with the commercial character of the neighborhood. Sorry, that's typo. The adequate measures have been taken to provide sufficient off-street parking and loading. The use is keeping with the commercial character of the neighborhood, creating normal additional parking or loading requirements. Adequate measures have been taken or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odors, fumes, dust, noise, vibration, so none of the views will constitute a nuisance, and to control lights and signs in such a manner that no disturbance to the neighborhood properties will result. The proposed use is keeping with the commercial character of the neighborhood. No commercial use of the property proposed. The conditional use will not result in the destruction, loss, or damage of natural, scenic, or historic features of the major significance, and the conditional use will promote prevention and control of pollution of ground and surface waters, including sedimentation and control of nutrients. The proposed use is in keeping with the commercial character of the neighborhood. The applicant has filed the appropriate CUP, they have paid the appropriate application. Public notice of the conditional use hearing was published in the legal newspaper, and property owners within 350 feet were given mail notice of this hearing. Public hearing is being held as we speak. Staff has reviewed the site plan, CUP application, building code compliance. Findings, recreational facility, public is an appropriate conditional use in the C zone. Mini golf is a public recreation facility. The following may be appropriate conditions for approval of a CUP. Applicant shall obtain a building permit for the structure. Applicant shall comply with all setback requirements. All structures shall comply with the building code. Impervious coverage shall not exceed 50%. All lighting to focus on the property. Consolidation of lots 329, 330, and 331. Entry to the parking lot shall utilize existing entrance at 801 County Road 11. That is something that you can have a discussion about at this point. Some of the other things that I think may be wound into this may be some kind of a separation between the adjacent property and or some kind of separation between the golf course development and the right-of-way to make some distinguishing differences.
Like a fence or?
Fences might be appropriate.
I don't know, can Mike talk now?
I just wanted to point you to the landscaping plan. There is a split rail fence that is identified on there, delineating between the neighboring property and also the right of way. It's just the little X hash marks.
Oh, okay, that's what that is?
Yes.
Okay. Question, Jerry. So in your wording, the driveway, we'd have to change the driveway, correct?
Well, there is an existing driveway that they could utilize. They are looking at doing a driveway at a different location,
Right.
which would require a permit from the county in order to do that.
I see why he's doing it, for the drainage.
So you have that in here as using existing entrance. If we think that it's appropriate to use the alternative, would we just add in that a note that they need to
Or you could eliminate that
altogether.
altogether. It's,
Would we call out, though, that they need to have a Crow Wing County permit for that, or
you
not
could
necessarily?
require that they obtain a permit from Crow Wing County for the driveway entrance.
Can we add a rain garden? I mean, they're technically having a rain garden with the fountain. Do we need to add?
I don't believe you need to. I think that most of the property acts as a rain garden
Well, that parking lot.
and the parking lot. I believe if you have a question about the entrance onto County Road 11, I think there might be a gentleman in the crowd that has some expertise in that. The county engineer is sitting in the back row back there.
So we'll continue the discussion here. We may call you back up here in a bit, so. Is there any other questions for Jerry at this time?
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but this impervious thing drives me nuts. When Scott goes out and does the inspection, it's kind of off the plan, right? I mean, he doesn't go out there and measure everything, and it might be 60%, it might be 40%.
We're gonna get some detailed plans, and once we get the detailed plans, we will figure what that is. And if
Okay.
it's built to those
I've always-
specifications, one of the things we're saying is that it can't be over 50%.
Okay.
So they have to design this project to meet that 50% maximum impervious coverage.
So if we approve this today, they will have to come back in with a little better plan.
I don't believe they have to come back. I think that they have
I mean, we don't have to see them again, they need to see you for the permit.
When they come for a permit,
Right.
the actual permit, they will have to present design plans showing
Correct,
the design and the actual impervious coverage.
okay.
And quite frankly, you could make that a condition of approval that you have to approve the concept also, or the design, if you
I
want
don't know
to do
if
that.
any of us are expertise on mini golf courses, so. Not that we're experts on anything.
Mark, would you please approach the podium one more time? And state your name for the,
Yes, Mark Pedig.
all right. And I think you had a comment on that.
Yes, if you pull up the driveway plan, we were discussing, if you could go to the landscape one too, I guess. Instead of having the entrance of the driveway on the far westerly portion, we could adjust that entrance to be right in line with the handicap stall and have it on the easterly part of the current driveway design, because our stormwater capture would still capture at the same rate. That would also allow space for a turn lane on County Road 11. We're having that entrance right off of that westerly corner with that neighboring driveway would not allow for that turn lane to be present.
Would that still require a county permit, Jerry?
Any new driveway is going to require a county permit.
And I did want to notate too that though I obviously own 8101 County Road 11, I do have 3 additional partners on this current property. And so to create the use of the existing driveway, I'd also have to create an easement through my property, which I may not have forever either, and what are the impacts that come along with that as well. Where if we all own both of them, I think it'd be a little different conversation. I don't like those guys that much, so.
It kind of makes sense to keep it separate,
Correct, because they are going to be separate entities.
right? I see there's a sign, there's a city ordinance on signs, so you can't put up a billboard there or anything.
Yeah, no. And we would keep it in line with that ordinance.
Does anyone have other questions for Mark?
There's some concern, Mark, or we have a letter from an individual who's concerned about sufficient parking. Specifically, some of that parking being taken up by your employees of the mini golf. Would there be sufficient parking in your Remax parking lot for your employees?
We could
If
certainly
that-
accommodate for
Okay.
that. We envision 1 to 2 employees at the max
Okay.
at any given time, just based on Mike's experience with his current course. We don't foresee any reason to have more than 1 to 2 employees at any time there, just due to the nature of the business.
And it would be possible for those employees to park in the Remax parking lot?
Absolutely, yeah. We have sufficient parking there, and I'd say, on average, we have 1 to 2 cars at most at our office currently.
There'll be probably a few people parking at the Commander eating, then coming over maybe too,
Possibility, yeah.
because that's right across the street basically, isn't it?
Yep, yeah.
Any other questions?
No question.
I've got a couple questions. So on that shop that you got there, is there like an estimated cost, what that would be for that structure?
Do we have that estimated cost, Ross?
Under 100,000
Yeah.
with electrical, sewer, connecting sewer lines.
So like what, 50 to 100 or?
Yeah, 50 to 100,000.
Kinda.
It'll have full electrical service, full sewer service. We do anticipate having a full use bathroom during our times of operation attached or inside the structure.
And then what about like hours of operation? I mean,
Yeah, so our hours of operation, I think we were 10 to 7.
10, probably 10 to 10 on Friday and Saturdays, and then like 10 to 9 during the week.
I see you had something, in ours, the lighting, how do you keep the less,
Mike is the lighting expert. I'll defer to Mike on that, if you don't mind me introducing him.
not shining out on 11 and so forth?
So I've got the existing mini golf, like summertime sunset, it's like 9 o'clock. So the use of lights is very minimal, especially, so we might have the lights on for maybe an hour, hour and a half. We're looking at a shoebox design, so it's basically downlit with baffles. So
Okay.
it's not, so we can, like if we wanted to do like a 180 lighting, we just have it on one side and have a baffle. So it's very downlit. The lights that we're looking at are LED, dark sky compliant. So there's not a lot of irradiation of light into the sky. Everything's downward facing, so. And then plus our surfaces are dark, so there's not a lot of reflection back up either, so.
I see on the survey, there's actually existing road across, so you may want to keep the driveway, the entry to the west. See
Yeah,
that-
to the
see that?
western part of what we already, yeah,
So-
you're correct there, yep.
People turning left or right, it'd be better
And
for the west.
I mean, I think Tim's gonna talk a little bit about potentially what the county would be looking for as well, so.
okay.
I think we'd kind of defer ourselves, since we gotta get a permit from the county anyway, right? So, I think it's all speculation right now until we hear from what he's saying as far as the entrance, so. But that's our rationale for how we went about it, so.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mark? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jerry? All right, we will move to open for public input. If anyone in the public would like to approach the podium, please state your name, address, and share with us your input.
Hello, my name is Kathy Leisure. My address is 8069 County Road 11. I have owned this property since 2005. It exists to the west of the 3 lots they're wanting to build a golf course, a mini golf course. I have had it as a residence since 2014. So basically, I'm here to ask not to build it next door to my home. It will bring down my property value and numerous other things, but I want Gary Leaf to speak in my behalf on the rest of this.
My name is Gary Leaf, and I live in Bloomington, 9716 Xerxes Road South. She just asked me a couple of minutes ago because she got nervous so I don't know, I don't have time to get nervous. Anyway, the main challenge is right up there on that map, which is County Road 11. The speed limit there goes from 55 to 45, and it's getting quite a bit past where this project is, where they start to slow down to 30 miles an hour. And so where the original on lot 329, where they have the in-out access at 45 miles an hour, that's 150 yards from that side. So it's not very far away, and there's all manner of vehicles coming down. There's large semi-trucks to RVs to trailerable boats, buses, all manner of things, and there's a lot of traffic moving there. The other part, and we looked at a different one. She went and looked at a different one. Was the Nisswa golf course there? And if you have a map, take a look at the map that she brought. Shows that you go from 371 and off ramp, and then a roundabout, then into a long driveway. They're similar in a lot of regards. That one has 24 parking spots, and the city of Nisswa did approve it, but that was one of their question areas was, is that enough parking? So the other one is on the unique golf course or golf cart. Somebody's going to have to be out there advising people, because golf carts, if you look at where they go, you just assume you can go anywhere you want and park wherever you want and do whatever you want. Well, if you got a confined parking area, so we'd question, on the the in and out access coming off of County Road 11 onto 329, you could move it down further, but you'd probably also have to have, coming in both directions. The traffic coming, would it be west to east, is moving a much faster clip, where the traffic going east to west is going up the hill. So, one of the things that we looked at was, she's in 329, and the combinations of lot 332.
I'm 328.
328, excuse me. 332 could also possibly, because it's affiliated, be combined to deal with this issue of this access. And you're really talking about, giving the traffic and the tourists and people a safer, better experience, I think would be something at least taking a look into. So that's it.
Thank you.
Good evening, David Landecker, 8581 Wren Drive. On behalf of actually myself and White Birch Properties, owning the golf course next door, and I guess the question was answered about the lighting and landscaping portion of it, but a little bit concerned about the comment on stormwater. And again, in developing numerous properties with the White Birch projects, there is a conformist in your ordinance as to what that stormwater is. It's not 10 years. It's more significant than that. So I would just encourage you to consider as one of your conditions that they meet the stormwater requirements of the city. You are in all other regards requesting them to conform to city ordinances. That's a pretty important one for them to conform to as well. So that's all I have to say. Not opposed to the application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Lillahai, 7460 Fairway Lane.
One of the things I would like to point out was the fact that they are accommodating for golf carts. We went through a lot of effort to get golf carts as an alternative means of transportation within the city of Breezy Point, and that has been in place for several years. This is the first time I've ever seen a proposal to actually make parking spaces for golf carts. We have probably 600 golf carts plus in the city of Breezy Point. It is an alternative means of transportation. Having something like this is an absolute plus. I see that. The fact that that whole area is all zoned commercial, I guess I would say that if you have a residential unit in there that is not conforming with the commercial nature of that zoning in there, as far as, the location, what it's doing, I think it's a big plus for the city of Breezy Point because it will make that area more of a downtown friendly, something we do not really have too much. We got a couple of gas stations and that's it. So having this would bring more tourists from the resort, to the restaurants and everything else. So I think this is a very good proposal, and the stormwater requirement is a 100-year flood, a 100-year rainfall, which is a very specifically defined amount of rain. And so that's what their stormwater would have to accommodate, was the 100-year rain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tim Bray. I'm the Crow Wing County engineer and at 16589 County Road 142 in Brainerd. And I'm here to kind of talk about the traffic. I'm not opposed to the development, but I'm concerned about the traffic. You correctly stated that this will require a county highway permit for an entrance. It's a change of use, and it sounds like a change of location. We can help with sizing the culvert and making sure that the drainage is perpetuated along the county highway to not cause a problem. So we can help with that location determination and the size of the culvert, and actually even help pay for some of the culverts. That's how it works. There is a lot of traffic. We took a quick look at this. I got this pretty late. I don't know, it just hit my desk yesterday afternoon, and I think it was prompted by the comments from Kathy. We looked at the whole area. None of the areas, including the city streets and the entrances to the commander, are managed by turn lanes. I was pleased to hear Mark maybe talk about a turn lane. I'd be willing to talk about that. There's an expense to that. The county would actually participate in that too. But the rest of the corridor is not managed in that way. It should be, maybe, but.
How about the speed?
The speed is 45 in this area. It would require a speed study, and I know we've done it, and I know there's some consternation on how speed studies are conducted and the results are delivered, and I think it was within the last few years that we studied this area, and nothing significant has changed in terms of the criteria would to lower the speeds. It would take some time to do that. With this in place, we could maybe study it afterwards. I'm concerned about all the walkers and the turning traffic, but it's not the reason not to allow this. We just would try to mitigate that. I'm concerned about parking. Some of it's spilling onto the shoulder, whether it be cars or golf carts, and if there's a way to mitigate that or to try to prevent that. I don't know if it's signs or just them paying attention. That would be something that we wouldn't like either. It's just more conflict on our shoulders of our roadways.
Seems like lowering the speed to 30 would be an easy fix, but I'm sure it's not that easy.
It's not, it's actually statute requires that the Minnesota Department of Transportation be involved. They come out and study it. And it sounds silly to have this in local communities, but when we drive around the state, we want consistency on the speed limits that we have. We don't want speed traps, go across the county line and have a different speed limit. So it's to maintain some of the consistency. And it's not that it takes time. It would be over a year to study it again. And again, the environment had not changed enough for, I would suspect it would remain 45 or what it is today.
So I have a question on that, as long as we're on this topic of that 40 or 45, whatever it is, and it has a sign when you get further, and it has a sign that says 30, but it has an arrow. There is no other sign that says 30. It just goes to the stop sign. I've always kind of wondered that. When does it really turn to 30? There is no, it just says an arrow.
It says 30 ahead.
Just says there, I believe I'm not seeing it right, but it says 30 with an arrow.
Oh, it's an advisory sign. So that,
It's been there for years and years and years.
Right, so then it's really meaningless, kind of. You're not designating to drop to 30. There should be a sign that goes, as far as I'm concerned, that sign 45 should be further back. That 30 should be really where that 45 is, whatever it is right now.
the black and white signs are the regulatory signs that you can get a ticket for.
Right.
And just to make it simple, all yellow signs with any kind of speed limit on it are suggestions and not enforceable. So it's alerting the public that, hey, you should maybe slow down, something's going on. I mean, that's,
So really, if somebody went 45 all the way to the stop sign, they couldn't get a ticket, right? Legally? Because there's no sign that says 30.
it's not a regulatory sign, it's a
So
suggestion.
that's kind of pointless, really.
That's why people come in pretty hot, you know?
So based on your review of the situation, it sounded like you brought up some concerns, but each time you said it, you didn't think it was a reason to not approve. Is there anything that you would want us to consider to add into the approval process?
The permit for the entrance is a change of use, and again, it can provide assistance to the property owner to get the proper size culvert and in the location, the proper width for the entrance and things like that.
And would your preference potentially be the alternative spot that we showed further down so that there could potentially be a turning lane? Or is that not an overall concern for you?
I think we'd like to have somebody on site working with the landowner. We have one of our maintenance supervisors that comes out and helps make those determinations, and collaborates with the landowners to get it in the right spot. So I can't say today. I'm not as familiar with the property as I
As
should be.
part of the permitting process, would that be something they would then
That is part of
indicate?
there's a site visit, so the property owner would put out where you would like it. They might, our staff might review it and then call a meeting with them to kind of fine tune where it would go and maybe some of the reasoning why.
So we don't need to specify it, you'll take care of that?
Not where it is, just that a permit, just like your building permit, just, I suggest requiring that.
Any other questions?
And you would probably do a speed study thing again, or you just did one, you said, huh?
We just did one. Well, as the city council, if that's something that the city desires again, I would ask that they write a letter to me, and then I can initiate that. We try to do it, to have it from the elected bodies, because sometimes residents call, everybody wants a 35 in front of their house, so we try to have it go through the elected bodies first.
And there's a cost associated to that.
There's no cost associated with that. They may say no, because we have MnDOT personnel do it, because they have so many, they may say, hey, we just did it 3 years ago, we're focusing on some other priorities. But if the letter comes from the city council, elected body, I'll initiate it again. And then again, it might take over a year, because they're so busy. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to give a little more color as a
mini golf owner in Cross Lake, just so you guys can understand like our perspective, what we're potentially bringing to this community. So Whistling Wolf Mini Golf used to be Cross Lake Mini Golf, dates back to 1967. It's the oldest continuing operating business in Cross Lake under one family. Now that CNC sold to Marine Max, so they used to be the oldest. It's become a pillar of our business community, and things have just kind of grown up around it. It's very similar to this situation here. It butts up to a golf course. It's in a commercial neighborhood. There's a residential neighborhood not too far away. A lot of the things like, a lot of these concerns came up when we kind of rebuilt it in 2003. But so then our city asked about our parking, and we said, roughly one parking spot per hole was adequate. We don't have golf cart traffic here. We do get a lot of bikes, so we're also going to be accommodating for bike traffic there. I was amazed. I went, kind of around town here the last couple months, and just all the golf cart traffic. So I think it's reasonable to estimate, like 20% of our traffic is probably going to be golf carts, just from the area. The other thing is like, mini golf is just a wholesome, family-friendly thing. We're not selling alcohol on there. It's just, there's a lack, just in general up here, there's a lack of off-lake family entertainment, right? So, people kind of, when they come to Breezy Point, if they're not golfing, they kind of look out the gate, look one way, look the other, and then go back in and, maybe play board games or something like that. But we certainly think that around our mini golf, to allay their fears of property values have skyrocketed, just because of the use, the good commercial use, and this is a commercial area, that it really lends more value to the adjacent businesses if you get that right mix of businesses. Also for the parking, we've got Crafts and Cones, Goodwill, the church on one side, our course. It's all kind of like a shared parking. So like when we're busy, other businesses may not be open, or vice versa. Like Goodwill's busy during the day, we're not as busy. So then a lot of their patrons park in our parking lot. So I think we'll see a lot of that here. Also, I don't know if Mark really spoke to it a lot, but he said, the employees could park in there, but that would also be like overflow at the Remax. We'd have an agreement set up with Mark. Our team would have an agreement set up with Mark for shared parking there. So that could accommodate, our holiday season overflow there, or at least more traffic. At some point, people just don't want to play because it's so busy and they can't even get in there. So, and there's only room for so many people on the course at one time. So that's what we're trying to accommodate. We felt like, why not? I'm glad that gentleman praised us for allowing for golf cart traffic, because that is leaving a smaller footprint on this planet by allowing golf carts, and less energy consumption, less impervious cover needed to accommodate those kinds of vehicles. And then lastly, for the stormwater, we can accommodate whatever needs to be accommodated with the city's input. Basically, if you know what a storm scepter is, it's a kind of a concrete thing that accepts water in, slows it down, collects the sediment. Basically want to build an open air storm scepter to deal with our stormwater there. We want to treat it, send it downstream cleaner than, or just as clean as it would have fallen out of the sky. So, but we've got a little more, if we need to enlarge the pond to make it bigger, we have more room, but we want to be sensitive to those buffers to the golf course and to the neighboring properties if we can. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and close the public forum and move on to our commission discussion and potential motion. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to reopen it. Just to put on the record, we do have a letter here from a resident, Kathy Ledger, that I just want to put on the record that we have seen and acknowledge that. All right, and public forum is closed, so staff discussion.
I think it's a pretty good project. The only thing that worries me is I know that 45, all of a sudden it's 30, the traffic. Otherwise, it's great, I think, but.
Well, and I think, I had concerns about that too, but I like the fact that they're going to be working with the county to figure out the right entrance, so that they,
Can work together
Can work
on
together.
that, right.
because it is true, I mean, even with the golf course down the road, that's full 55 to go into, like where Antlers is,
But
that
they have a
turning
turn
lane.
lane,
They have a bypass.
bypass and a turn, yeah, it's a bypass.
So if there was a turning lane here, I think that would,
And there's
Maybe
a
be a
turning lane
helpful
from
thing.
the west, yeah.
and I like the fact, I mean, if we added something about the stormwater ordinance, just to,
And the county permit,
yep, just to make sure that that's documented for us.
right.
And then Lee, you brought up hours of operation, that may be something we want to add in there. How does everybody feel 10 a.m. to potentially 10 p.m. is appropriate?
Yeah, I don't think you want it any later than 10.
Yeah.
Is that possible? Yeah.
Well, we can write that in.
I don't know, can we, Jerry? Can we put time of operation?
Yes, you can.
Okay,
We've done that before with some of the other businesses. if we
yeah,
felt.
I guess we have, yeah.
Any other discussion? Anybody have other concerns, thoughts?
I guess I have a lot of concerns. You know, as we know, we have a lot of underage drivers, golf cart drivers, and, you know, I love this idea of this, you know, mini golf thing, but, you know, they're gonna be coming up on 11 with golf carts. And, to me, that's just a huge, you know, I think that's something that we've talked about maybe in the past, is trying to get some trails for these people to stay off the roads. You know, I mean, like I say, this is a great idea, but I'm just kind of concerned in the location. We got a house right next to it. And who's gonna, you know, keep kids from running around there at night? You know, I live down back here and there's kids hanging out in the playground until all hours of the night, and there's nobody watching that stuff. And, you know, granted, that's more out in the open, but I don't know. I see a lot of concerns with that.
I guess I'm a little, I like the comment, that is a commercial zone area, so at some point in time, it's going to be developed commercially.
Yeah.
And likely commercial type traffic, so I think this is, to me, it seems like this is an appropriate use for our area for a commercial type establishment.
Might jumpstart the county and getting a turn lane and some
Yep.
speed thing done.
And I trust very much that if there is an issue with speed, we're going to hear about it and they're going to hear about it, and a study will likely evolve just based on what I've seen in other areas of Breezy. When we've had a need, it does get addressed, so.
Okay.
Well, I would make a motion to approve the conditional use permit with the following conditions. Number one, that the applicant will attain a building permit for the structure. 2, applicant shall comply with all setback requirements. 3, all structures shall comply with state building code. 4, impervious coverage will not exceed 50%. 5, all lighting will focus on the property. 6, consolidate lots 329, 330, and 331. I would say for number 7 to seek a county permit and work with the county to determine appropriate entrances. I would also add in number 8 that they conform to the stormwater ordinance. And that number 9, that hours of operation will not exceed from earlier than 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Can I ask, what, didn't you say maybe 9 o'clock in the morning? Or are we always 10?
Potentially 9 o'clock close on Sundays.
Oh, okay, okay, all right, sorry.
If you wouldn't mind just putting like 9 o'clock, potential opening at 9 o'clock. I don't think that's
9 to 10, I think it should be.
Okay, so I'll modify number 9, I believe, hours of operation from 9, not to exceed 9 a.m. to 10 p.m.
I think as long as we're capping the top, we can. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
just to kind of alight that question, the issue that Lee brought up too of trying to contain traffic during that time. So we have a motion.
I'll second it.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion has passed. And moving on to variance application V23004, Joseph Martinson of 29700 Lakeshore Drive, Breezy Point, lots 3, block 1, Breezy Point Club, parcel 1021 120 11222, request for variance to expand legal nonconforming structure with the addition of a 268-foot square deck. Variance to exceed 25% impervious coverage. At this time, we invite the applicant to come up to the podium, identify their name, address, and share with us their request.
Excuse me, ma'am.
You're on item E.
I think there's another item before that. I think
Yeah, I
there's
was
a
lost.
conditional
Did I
use
miss?
before that.
Yeah.
Should be the conditional use permit for
Robin Lane.
32113 Robin Lane.
Yeah,
Thank you.
for the
I got off
structure.
track. All right, we're going to backtrack. We're going to move back one to public hearing, conditional use permit application C23005 for Mark Olson on 30213 Robin Lane, Breezy Point, lots 304 through 307, 15th addition to Breezy Point Estates, parcel 10161,593, to construct a 52-foot by 30-foot accessory structure, 1,560 square feet in a R4 zone. So I invite that applicant to come up to the podium, identify your name, address, and share with us the request.
Corey Bergquist, 28195 Mission Cutoff, representing Mark Olson on Robin Lane. We are requesting a conditional use permit for a accessory structure for storage. My customer has a very small garage in his duplex, so he doesn't have a lot of room. He did buy the 2 adjacent lots to it and then combine them to potentially be able to do this. So I think it was at the city's request, but I don't remember. I know they had spoken to combine them to make things easier on everybody, so.
Any questions from the commission?
They must have had a permit to fill all that in.
I talked to the city and they said that would be fine.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I went through it. There is a drain that comes off the road from the other side of the road. The Eagle's Nest dumped their stormwater into this property. So where you see that circle there.
Mm-hmm. The top circle?
Right in the middle there.
Stormwater.
Yep. And then so probably halfway on that boulder wall on the roadside there is it shoots out there, and they just required that I put a swale in to drive that down there and not cover the culvert.
Oh, okay. I see one on top too.
Oh, that's like a fireplace.
It's a storm
Oh, that
water.
one. Yeah, there's a depression back there,
Oh,
so
okay.
it'll flow back there.
It's kind of nice looking building. I mean, considering most of them are 16 feet high and.
Yeah, I came to Jerry, last July maybe, and have been working through this with him in the city, you know, to meet all of your ordinances and make it aesthetically pleasing, as well as, you know, we're not opposed to advisory of the council either. You know, if you want some more trees along the roadside there or something of that nature.
Could you get trees in there?
I didn't put it on the
Oh.
drawing, but if that's a condition. But there are trees existing there, so it will block it as well. It's not just a big giant eyesore.
And you already indicate siding will be the same, similar to the house, same look and feel.
What's that?
The siding will be similar.
It'll
to
be
the house.
same or similar, yeah. He would like to do an LP siding. He has vinyl on his house, and because he's on the duplex, he doesn't want to do half the house down the middle, and you know. So we'd try to color match at least, you know.
Okay.
But it'll be a lap with shakes in the gables. I don't know if it was necessary on this. My survey is scheduled for Friday. I had all that dirt work happen, and I didn't want them to run over all the stakes and not be able to mark out my territory.
So they didn't need a permit for all that fill, Jerry, huh?
Pardon?
He didn't need a permit to put that fill in?
It would be all part of this permit.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Joe had said it was okay. Joe Zierden.
We didn't anticipate he'd be forging ahead at the speed that he did.
Sorry.
I did inform him that you can approve and you can disapprove these type of things, and, you know, that.
It's a conditional.
The reason for the hearing is why we're having the hearing today.
Right.
Any questions?
Nope.
We may bring you back up if that's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, moving on to staff review. Jerry, if you can lead us.
Again, conditional use permit 23005. The applicant is Mark Olson. The address is 30213 Robin Lane. The property identification number is 101-61593. Legal description is lots 304 through 307 of the 15th addition to Breezy Points Estates. The zoning is multifamily residential R4. The applicable city code is 153034. And the conditional use, again, request is to construct a detached accessory structure, 1560 square feet. Applicant has submitted an application for a conditional use permit to construct a detached accessory structure, 1,560 square feet. Property is zoned R4. Property is 3 adjacent lots located on Robin Lane. The lots are consolidated with a home that is on the north side of this property. It's actually a twin home. I won't bore you with the findings and the verbiage that we went through in the last conditional use, but they are the same. The applicant has filed the appropriate application for a CUP, paid the appropriate fee. Public notice of the conditional use hearings was published in the legal notice paper, and property owners within 350 feet were given mailed notice. Public hearing is being held as we speak. Staff has reviewed the site plan, CUP, building code. We have still yet to see the survey. I'm told that the survey is in process. Accessory structures cumulative up to 1,600 square feet on parcels 2 acres or less is an appropriate conditional use in the R4 zone. The following may be appropriate conditions for approval of the CUP. Applicant shall obtain building permit. Applicant shall comply with all setback requirements. Siding and roofing of principal structure and accessory structure shall be of similar material and color. All structures shall comply with state building code. Height of accessory structure shall not exceed 15 feet.
Do we need to include something on there on the fill?
Pardon?
Do we need to include any designation on the fill?
More than 50 yards?
Yeah.
Filling to comply with the drainage plan that he showed you.
Yes.
You can add that if you would like.
Okay.
Since we don't have a, can I ask you a question, Jerry?
Pardon?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Since we don't have a survey, we don't really know the setbacks, do we?
Well,
I mean,
part of the conditions that I put down that he has to conform to the setback.
setbacks, right. So I guess,
If in fact he can't conform to that setbacks, he either has to come back to you
okay, all right,
for a variance and/or he has to reduce the size of the structure.
correct. It seemed like it was kind of close to the road, but maybe it's not?
It's not.
It's not, okay.
There's easement stakes at the property currently. It
Okay.
has been surveyed before.
Okay.
And I do have the survey from when it was multiple lots, but he combined them, and since
Right.
then, there hasn't been a survey. But
Okay.
there are stakes there, and I measured off everything, so.
Yep. We have this plan that says 35 feet.
Well, it's 75 or 70.
70.
Yeah,
Really?
35 plus 35.
Oh, is that
That's how I'm reading it.
35 from the setback? Is that the rate? Boy, it doesn't look that far, but whatever. As long as we have it in the verbiage.
One of the reasons we require setbacks for conditional use permits and variances is so that we know exactly what we're talking about.
All right.
It's unfortunate that we don't have a survey this evening, but we went ahead and scheduled it. We thought we were going to have a survey. We don't.
But as he said, as long as we put this in here, it will have to comply.
We would not issue building permit if it didn't comply to the setbacks and there weren't property stakes out there.
Like you said, we'd be sitting back here next month, right?
Pardon?
We would be back here next month discussing the setbacks and getting a variance for that.
Or he would reduce the size of the structure to something less than 1560.
Right.
That would comply with all setbacks. If he wanted to do the 1560 and he couldn't comply with the setbacks, he would be in front of you for a variance. He really doesn't have a practical difficulty other than he wants something bigger than what can be built on the
Right.
property.
So if we approve it with the setbacks that there should be no reason to have to come back, right?
Okay. Any other questions for Jerry?
No.
All right, let's open this up to a public forum. If anyone has public input, please approach the podium, state your name, address, and share with us your input.
Good evening, Jeff Johnson representing Eagles Nest Timeshare. I was concerned as I read through the packet for this particular one. I was asked to come here for Eagles Nest. I didn't see the appropriate conditions for denial of the CUP. So I don't know if that meant it's a done deal. I'm not really sure what that means. You did ask about the fill that was brought in. It seems like either A, they brought the fill in too early or without a permit, or B, they started the project without approval. And so it seems like there should be some kind of a violation there to me. Also, I didn't really see much of a landscape plan. Just grass will cover entire property that is not currently landscaped. He did mention some trees. We feel like this building is going to kind of stick out. It is on the property with the main structure. With it being all the way at the end, it's going to look like a accessory structure without a main structure. And so we were concerned about that. It is a residential area. The last page of staff's notes, it says 4 times the proposed use is in keeping with the residential character of the neighborhood. Quite frankly, I don't think that's the case. It's going to look like a pole barn and not like a residential area anymore. If it is a slam dunk and it's already been approved, I guess then the only thing we can really ask for is to have a lot more trees to screen the entire structure, and including maintenance if anything is removed. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to apologize and clarify, like, I very specifically asked if I could do that prior to this. I didn't ask Jerry. It must have been a miscommunication. So I do apologize for that. I didn't mean to upset the council, so.
Thank you.
Good evening again. David Landecker, 8581 Wren Drive. I drive by this property nearly every day. And maybe as was suggested by the applicant, the house is really nicely done, and there's a couple of really nice pine trees screening kind of the driveway front entrance. At least a couple similar kinds of trees here. I know they couldn't be as big, but would be helpful because it would give it a 4-season screening. Right now, it's just birch and oak, trees that'll drop their leaves, and it will be wide open during the 8 months that we don't have green grass. The other thing that I would suggest in a condition is that the people that own this place, I mean, they have maxed out the garages. Their cars are always parked on the driveway because they've got everything in the garage, which I'm assuming that's what this will be for, so they can actually park their vehicles in the garage. But in many similar instances where there's been variances or conditional use granted for this, is that all of the things that needed to be put in here should be stored inside. In other words, no outside storage allowed. You know, like trailers and jet skis and things, now all of a sudden plastered outside on the driveway, when hopefully this is ample room for that. The garage is ample room for the things that they want to put in it, which I think is actually in the zoning district. No, you know, all storage needs to be undercover. So that, and the only other thing is that nobody's talked about lighting, and again, Jeff is here. Jeff was speaking towards Eagle's Nest. Is there lighting, is there any kind of proposed lighting that might impact the neighborhood? I know that Eagle's Nest was approved with, you know, very limited lighting to minimize any light pollution at the time. So I'm just curious what the lighting on this project would be.
Probably can speak right now, sorry. It's just going to be a couple of sconces by the service doors.
Would you approach the podium and just so we have that on record? And
Corey Bergquist. There'll just be a sconce on either side of the garage door on both sides, so they can turn it on when they go in and out.
And just a question for you, since it's
Yep.
been brought up a couple times, would you be open to adding additional 4-season trees, pines, something like that on the property?
Yep, we're open to that. I just didn't draw them in because of the meeting, so.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and close the public forum and move on to staff discussion here.
Madam Chair, can I address one of the concerns that Mr. Johnson gave? This in no way was a done deal. Quite frankly, a conditional use permit is something that is permitted with conditions. The conditions are probably the biggest part of this public hearing is approval with conditions. Conditional uses are, the misnomer used to be that they're not allowed, but they're only allowed if you give them permission. Conditional uses are something that is allowed with conditions. And if you any condition that you put on, if you want to put in screening and those type of things, you certainly can do that as part of approval. If the applicant does not want to comply with those conditions, you can take that approval away.
Thank you. Well, and on that note, this is the first time our planning commission has had this in front of us, so.
David Landecker, 8581 Wren Drive. I do have a question. What would be allowed without a conditional use?
In an R4 zone.
Is that the 10 by 12 structure?
No. 10 by 12, actually up to 1280.
1280.
Yep.
Yeah, so he right now he could go build a 1280
without
anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what I was curious.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing portion and continue on with the discussion. So as far as conditional use options, I think we should, in my opinion, I think we should add in something about adding a tree line buffer along the property line
Right.
with some four-season plantings.
And I know he shows the rain garden, but I still think we need to put that in there.
And how would you?
Yeah, don't you think? Yeah. Storm sewer, rain garden. I guess on residential would call it a rain garden, huh?
So how would you, how would you state that? Just to add a rain garden? Is there any conditions on that that you'd?
Surface water management via rain garden.
There you go.
Thank
Well,
you.
that's a good sounding way to say that.
And then I would just say adding another one to limit fill according to the submitted plan. So those would be 3 additional, I think, conditions that we've talked about here.
And the trees for the screening, how do you dictate that? 20-foot trees?
I think they, in other cases, we've left it up to the applicant to provide a landscaping plan that comes back to you for your approval. And I think you can certainly do that.
Okay.
I believe the last time we did something like that, we stipulated that there had to be X amount of pine trees that were at least a certain height.
And they weren't?
And that did not materialize, so we had to have a second approval in front of you folks of a landscaping plan with larger trees, et cetera.
I think I remember that.
So I think you can stipulate that the screening plan or landscaping plan be approved by you.
Any other conditional uses?
Do we want anything about lights? Or did you already put that in there?
How would you word that, or what would you?
There is a city ordinance that says your lights cannot go past your property line.
You certainly could, all lighting has to be focused on the property.
Just make that right.
Certainly could do something like that.
But a sconce isn't, on the property, not the building.
Focused on property. Okay. Any other conditional uses?
And like I said from the beginning, he could build a 16-foot high wall pole barn, technically, with a CUP. This looks better than a pole building standing there, I believe.
I agree.
So if I can say something. So not long ago, we approved one down the road on Eagle Lane. Is that different? This is R4? Is that all R4?
That was a different zoning.
Yep,
Okay.
R2 or
And it
3,
was the same type of request. And it was a request for something that was higher than 15 feet.
Any other conditional uses to consider?
No, I think that should.
All right, well then I'm going to make a motion, because I wrote these down, to approve the conditional use permit with the following conditional uses. Number 1, applicant shall obtain a building permit for the accessory structure. 2, applicant shall comply with all setback requirements. 3, siding and roofing of principal structure and accessory structure shall be of similar materials and colors. 4, all structures shall comply with state building code. 5, height of accessory structure shall not exceed 15 feet. 6, limit fill to according to the submitted plan. Number 7, add trees as a buffer to reduce property line sight vision and return this plan for approval by the commission. Add a surface water management plan via rain garden. And number 9, any lighting on the property should be focused on the property. So we have a motion. Any discussion or seconds?
I'd second it.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion has passed.
Can I ask who made the motion?
Madam Chair.
Chair.
Okay.
All right, and since I got ahead of myself last time, now I get to go back to variance application V23004, Joseph Martinson of 29700 Lakeshore Drive, Breezy Point, lots 3, block 1, Breezy Point Club, parcel 102112222, request for variance to expand legal nonconforming structure with addition of a 268 foot deck, variance to exceed 25% impervious coverage. At this time, we ask the applicant to approach and state your name and address.
Joseph Martinson, 29700 Lakeshore Drive. Proposing to build a deck on the lake side to enjoy the lake views and remove impervious bricks along the property to make up for some of that impervious.
So with questions with, so by moving some of the bricks, do you have an idea about how much square footage that is?
I think it's about 200 total. And then there's a well pump, an old well pump down by the lake we'll remove too.
The pavers were 500 and some square feet. You're not taking them all out, evidently.
We can. They're just kind of all over the place right now.
Because the impervious right now is 38.6, and with the removal, was going down to 32. With the addition of the deck. Is that the way I read that, Jerry? I guess it's where or not I should be asking.
After talking to the applicant, that seemed to be the road that they wanted to go down. You can recover, again, because they're asking for something that is special.
Right.
And they're asking for a deck on a piece of property that is considered overbuilt today.
Right.
Because of the impervious coverage. You can require that you could make a stipulation that they have to come down to 25%.
That
as
would
part
mean...
as part of your approval. Now, that would require them to do some, I think, some significant
right.
removal and replacement of some some impervious materials with pervious materials. I did have a discussion with them about you're adding the deck, that the deck, under the deck could be done in an impervious manner. And I'm actually making that as a suggestion to the board if they want to continue with the discussion. My calculations were that it got down to 32%.
Right.
If they did make the under deck of a pervious material.
I didn't realize there's a deck under the deck going to be?
The new deck would be considered an additional impervious structure. So that could raise that 32 up to 37 or 39.
Right.
So my suggestion is that under the deck be done in such a manner that it would be considered pervious.
Right.
So then it's a no net.
It's a wash. Grass, rocks.
So it is grass
It is
right now.
currently just,
So you don't plan on pouring concrete underneath there,
No,
do you?
just walk underneath it because there's a door
Okay.
to our mechanical room.
and there
under
are
it.
slats in the decking material for rain to flow through as it currently is proposed.
Okay.
So there is an existing little step there, you're gonna take that off and build a whole new deck? Is that the way I understand that?
That is part of the structure of the building, so we'd just
Oh.
be going right over top of that. It's part of the foundation.
Oh, okay, so it is impervious there, okay.
I have a couple questions on that. So In between the garage and the house, I can't remember, I've been to this property many times, but in between, I can't remember, is there tar in between there?
It is concrete, and it
Or concrete?
does seem like they poured it when they did the foundation, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
I just wondered if, that area between the garage and the house, if you maybe eliminated some of that and just, you know what I mean? Made a sidewalk in between and just to kind of, gain some stuff there. And then that, by the front door, if I remember right, that's kind of all like decking there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just for one step up to get up to the door
Okay.
that they had built up, so.
Yeah.
Do the pavers serve a purpose currently for you?
Trip hazard.
So there's pavers down below too?
They're kind of scattered throughout the property down. Some might be underneath the grass even too still.
Okay.
We're very open to ideas from the council and willing to take out all the pavers, absolutely.
So Jerry, with your calculation, the impervious coverage not to exceed 32, did that include any remover of pavers?
That was to remove them all,
Was
correct?
That was to remove,
it says eliminate, was that all or?
it was to remove the concrete pavers that were there
Okay.
and make the area underneath the new deck pervious.
Right. And that
That would
sounds
get it
like,
back down to 32%.
right. They'd actually
You'd be
gain from
improving.
30, right. And sounds like they agree that grass, dirt, gravel, whatever under the deck would be the case, so.
Well, we consider the deck to be pervious.
I know, yeah.
So the area underneath that would become, or we consider that to be impervious.
Yeah, right.
The area under that would become impervious also. We're suggesting that they do the subsoil work so that it becomes
Pervious,
pervious
right.
underneath the deck.
So they could put like even rock or something under there?
It's actually an excavation that takes you down about 12 to 13 inches, and it's a series of layers of rock material or granular material that gets you to a situation where the water will penetrate through rather than run off.
Don't we have the sugar sand that just runs through anyhow? I'm just thinking out loud. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
no,
that's,
and
you know.
when I looked at, the first thing when I saw this proposal, the first thing I said is
Right,
we've got a survey that shows you're at 38%.
right. Yep. Yep. And that's a good solution, yeah,
It would have been very easy for me to say, no, you can't do it.
yeah. And it is right on the property line, right?
I believe we're within the 10 feet specs to
The
the.
deck is, yeah.
That's
That's
not
a
the point.
precondition, right, right.
The point is that this is, because it's close to the property line, and actually it's right on the property line, it's considered a legal non-conforming use. And again, as we saw in the first hearing, a expansion of a legal non-conforming use cannot be done without a variance.
Right.
That's the reason we're here. They're applying for a variance to expand that legal non-conforming use. I was trying to minimize the overbuilding of the property
Right.
by showing some ways that it could be brought into conformance. Now, you could say, bring it into conformance to 25%, and then it's up to them to figure out, they've got a lot of driveway. They could make that whole driveway pavers, make it pervious. They could do that. It gets very expensive to do that. But it's a situation that we haven't dealt with in the past. It is It's unique because it's overbuilt today. But there are ways to get around that and still accomplish what they're trying to do. And I would never tell any applicant that they can't apply for a variance.
Right.
So with the variance, we always want to know what the practical difficulty is. What would you say the difficulty, if we do not approve this, what hardship or difficulty are you going to have with this property?
I'd say the practical difficulty is inheriting the property as it is now and how it's built. I guess I would have put a deck on it instead of some concrete before to enjoy the lake as a practical difficulty.
And I'm Leah Martinson, his wife, but the lots are very narrow. I think decks are just conforming to the neighborhood in general. It seems on the lake, decks are what is expected and commonplace. Being that we currently don't have one, that's the practical difficulty that we inherited, and we're just trying to work with what we have, so.
So if you put that deck on there, and then I'm assuming, would you guys put like a patio door coming off that kitchen, dining area, whatever that was,
Correct.
you know?
Correct.
It was actually currently already roughed in.
Yeah, because I think if I remember right, at one time it was designed to go around the back of the house because there was no deck, and so you would be kind of eliminating a lot of that sidewalk and where pavers that goes down there.
Yes, sir.
So just kind of summing this up, what I'm hearing is that your practical difficulty, you inherited the property in a manner that was already without having the appropriate levels of impervious coverage, but you're wanting to use it in a reasonable manner, but due to that unique area of the property that you're not able to do so. And you're also stating that it's essential character of the locality. You're noting that other homes in there have decks throughout there.
Correct.
All right, any other questions anyone has for the applicants?
You understand what Jerry's talking about under the deck about, I was talking out of line saying all the sand soaks in, but it's a granular material that.
I gave them an example.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Construction, and it's a cutout
Kind of a
of
layered
what it would
system.
take to do that.
Okay. And you would be okay with that?
Yes, if we need to do that, sure.
All right. Well, the good thing is it lowers the impervious.
Yeah,
I
it's an
mean,
improvement.
It's an improvement. To tear the driveway out and put an impervious driveway would be, then you would be under 25%, which wouldn't even
Well,
be.
you wouldn't have to tear the whole driveway out. You
No.
just have to tear out a certain amount of square footage that would get you to that 25%.
Right.
Basically 7% under this calculation. Another 7.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to Jerry's summary, or does anyone else have questions?
No question? No.
Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you for your time.
All right, we'll move on to staff review. Jerry, please lead us. You've already been doing so, but continue on.
Actually, I think we probably discussed my staff report. I'm not going to belabor the fact and deal with all the variances, but I will review the request. Again, the request is 2023-004. The applicant is Joseph Martinson. The legal description is Lot 3, Block 1, Breezy Point Club. The address is 29700 Lakeshore Drive. The PID number is 102-11222. And the zoning of the property is R2. It is serviced by municipal sewer. The applicable code is 153-007, 153-132, and 004, 045, and 120. The request is to construct a 268 square foot deck addition to an existing dwelling, a legal non-conforming use. Property is Pelican Lakeshore, located at 29700 Lakeshore Drive. Property is 10,124 square feet, served by municipal sewer. The current impervious coverage is 3,909 square feet, which equates to 38.6%. The existing dwelling is 1,014 square feet, built prior to zoning. The dwelling is considered a legal non-conforming structure because it is located less than 10 feet from the property line, approximately a half a foot from the property line in some places. Zoning again is R2. The applicant contends that the practical difficulty is, and again, I think that is something that you need to define if in fact you are going to approve this proposal. The existing impervious coverage is 38.6%. The proposed structure deck is located within setbacks and building envelope. The use is consistent with the residential use in the area. The city attorney again has advised that the expansion of a non-conforming use is allowed under state law, provided the variance meets the practical difficulty test under Minnesota statutes, section 462.357, subdivision 6, sub 2. The existing impervious coverage exceeds 25%. The following may be used to support denial of a variance request. The Planning Commission Board of Adjustment finds that no practical difficulty exists. The existing impervious coverage exceeds 25%. The addition would render impervious coverage of 41.2%. The following may be used to support approval of the variance request. The property pre-exists zoning rules. The practical difficulty is to be determined. Measures will be taken to reduce impervious coverage. Proposed deck complies with setbacks. If improved, the following may be conditions of the approval. Deck addition to be within the building envelope. Area under deck to be excavated and filled with granular material that renders the area pervious. Eliminate pavers. Impervious coverage not to exceed 32%. Install rain gardens to catch and purify runoff.
I know we've talked a bit about this already, but any additional questions for Jerry?
No.
All right. Then I'll go ahead and move on to open forum. So if there's any public input, please approach the podium, state your name and address, and share your input. All right, pending no open forum participants, we'll close the open forum and close the public hearing portion and move on to commission discussion. So with this is a variance request, which means we need to define the practical difficulty and also discuss any conditions. In reading the actual Minnesota statute 462.357, as Jerry indicated too, practical difficulties means that the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the zoning ordinance, and the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by them, and would not alter the essential character of the locality. So in asking the applicants specific questions about that, it indicated, and I think Lee, you're also very familiar with the area. It seems that most homes there on the lake do have decks, so that would be essential to the character.
Right.
This is something they did inherit. It's the plight of the landowner is due to the circumstances unique to the property, and they propose to use it in a reasonable manner. Does that seem fitting for everyone?
Pretty much sums it up.
Yeah.
I mean, we could ask the deck to be smaller, but that little bit is not going to change the impervious that much, you know, say 5 feet smaller, it wouldn't really help the impervious much.
And
The good thing is going from 38 to 32, it's still over the 25, but.
that's a significant it's an
Right.
improvement versus leaving it as it is today. We are doing something to better it.
Right.
Does anyone have additional conditions beyond the 5 that are listed here?
I think those pretty much cover everything that I can think of.
Do we have anyone interested in making a motion?
I would make that motion to approve this application to include the conditions outlined in the city planner's memo to us.
All right, so we have a motion, and I will verbalize that. So the motion is to approve with the conditions that the deck addition be within the building envelope. 2, the area under the deck will be excavated and filled with granular material that renders the area pervious. 3, eliminate all pavers. 4, impervious coverage will not exceed 32%. 5, installing rain gardens to catch and purify the runoff. Under the conditions that support this, just noting the practical difficulty as defined by Minnesota Statute 462.357, as we discussed, it meets their criteria listed. So we have that as a motion. Do we have a second?
I would second that.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion has carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to item G, public hearing. Oh, no, sorry. We have that one.
It's not on the agenda.
So moving on to I, White Birch. Discussion of rezoning R1 low-density residential to R4 multiple family residential. So applicant, please approach.
Good evening again, David Landecker, 8581 Ren Drive, Breezy Point, here representing White Birch Incorporated.
You're still going to need to have to apply for a building permit.
The reason I'm here tonight is actually good news, is
To show the elimination.
White Birch Village, which I'm sure most of you are aware of along the White Birch Golf Course, has been completely built out and nearly sold out. So the developer's been looking at and trying to identify properties that he could continue with that same type of development. And we were before you about a year ago and got an approval to reconfigure some lots in White Birch 7. And so I'm here today to talk to you about the appropriateness of bringing a zoning change to you on those lots to R4, which would then support a development of the nature that's on the picture that's colored. Those highlighted in green is the plat that was previously approved called White Birch Vista. These lots would need to meet all the criteria that the city's ordinance is just sort of a rough sketch, needs to be much more refined by engineers and surveyors, but wanted to give you somewhat of an idea of what type of project that we would be looking at as it would relate to rezoning. Now, the property currently is zoned R1, and also on the golf course portions was, the golf course is zoned commercial, resort commercial. And if you scroll up some of the maps here, we can kind of look at what's going on in the neighborhood. So here's a picture of it. The yellow areas to the north and west are single-family residential homes. The property that's brown to the south of us along the highway is timeshare. That's White Birch Village, no, White Birch Estates. Like White Birch. White Birch Estates. And and then it kind of goosenecks up to the top there and gets close to touching us. That's where the force main sewer system is for the city across there. And then what we're looking at doing is continue to connect that R4, the dark brown is the R4 district, connect that dark brown district to going across the golf course and then into this property to make a continuous R4 district, which would allow that to happen. One of the benefits the property has is there is public sewer that's available, so we can hook up to public sewer. It shows up, I think there's, and again, if you move up on the plan or down, whichever direction it is, there's a sewer availability map, and so the brown properties are sewer available, which were along County Road 11, and I've, kind of highlighted over the top of that with the blue and the cross hatching, but the properties that we have there along the highway would have been identified as such. So sewer's available, which is something that's necessary in our R4 district. So it just, kind of, again, provides a nice opportunity to extend the White Birch Village development scheme into this area. If you are familiar with that property, the White Birch Village property, it's mostly, I'm trying to think what the term Bob always uses, active adults. So it's, mainly, it's not families with a lot of children running around, so the traffic and the use of the property is, less than what you might normally expect on a residential area, where it's just typically a husband and wife or partner that, occupy those residences, and then occasionally having guests, etc. So this is just sort of a highlighted view of it. The homes that I identified before, the 4 duplexes, would all have, pristine views of the golf course, and, maintain that character like in the other projects. So here tonight, we don't have a formal application in front of you for a zoning change. And Jerry suggested I just, kind of come in and with some information share with you before we actually came in with a formal application. In the event that you were opposed to this process, then we would go back and scratch our heads and try to figure out different sites. But again, I think from my perspective, it's an appropriate location, and with the availability of public sewer, the use being mostly, looking towards the golf course, which is owned by the resort, and, limited use because of the type of ownership. So I'd like to get some input from you as to whether you think it's a good idea, not so good idea, good location, not so good location. Because if it's a good location, then we probably would be before you next month with a rezoning application for a public hearing.
Back to the sewer plan. Would the sewer come off of by 11, or would it go through that?
Well, there's two options.
okay.
I mean, there's a couple options. We'd need to work with the city engineer to figure out the right method. I mean, we can bore underneath the highway like they did at the clinic and connect to it, or there is sewer that's, like I say, down not far away from it, it's a possibility we can just run a gravity line down our side of the right-of-way there too, but
Right.
I would leave that for the engineers to figure out.
But just if they came up into the cul-de-sac, then these people may have to hook up to the city sewer then, correct? I don't know.
Well, we're the only ones in the cul-de-sac, so.
Isn't there a house there? Yeah. Or
Not-
two?
Not right on the
before the circle.
cul-de-sac. There's a vacant.
Oh, not on the cul-de-sac, but there's,
No,
there's a house right there.
right.
There's a house.
I think whenever we look at this sewer, and we haven't looked at the sewer yet, that we would with the city engineer. One of the things I think we would like to explore is getting that sewer line to the cul-de-sac, so that if it had to be extended down so that we could service some of those existing homes, if in fact they had trouble in the
Right.
future,
Okay.
that would be an option. I think some of that is an opportunity that should be explored at this time.
So it does not come down that Chickasaw Circle then, right? Down that
No, it
road.
does not. The sewer, actually, if you look at that, if you know anything about the golf course there that runs along County Road 11, it's at the bottom of the hill.
Right.
There's a lift station down there.
All right. Yep.
There's also a line that comes across the one of the fairways. I think it's the 18th fairway.
Yeah, off that cul-de-sac that's on the, right by the E on site. There's cuts right straight across the golf course there.
So there's two options to getting it there. Again, I don't think you should even entertain this proposal if in fact you can't get sewer there.
Yeah, and we wouldn't be here without knowing that, being able to put sewer on it. And I'm in agreement with Jerry in the fact that if we can get it to the cul-de-sac, that would be the most favorable location. Even if we have to serve it on the front of the lots, but then extend an arm up into the cul-de-sac, provides, a solution for the future.
Right.
But in my first rendition, when I talked to Jerry, is that we'd come off of the cul-de-sac and go to the northeast and go underneath the road, or again, come down our side of the right-of-way to the lift station. But I'm gonna let people that are
Experts.
more expertise in the design of that to look at it.
So who would pay for something like that then? To bring that-
Developer. Developer would have to have that, somebody look at that for him. And I've kind of talked to Jerry a little bit about that and David, and we're thinking that if we were to proceed with something like this, we probably would, the developer would enter in an agreement with the city engineer to look at it. So we didn't have kind of engineers butting heads trying to figure out who's doing it the right way or the wrong way. We would get the right way done that would best suit the city on the front end.
So it's an R1 now, we'd have to kind of spot zone it, or whatever would you call
Well,
it?
actually,
Touches R4 and resort.
when you
Yeah,
look at
little
what the hatch marks are,
Right.
they're actually looking at rezoning some of the resort commercial, which has been done already, but another piece of the resort commercial so that it ties into the R4 that's along County Road 11.
Okay.
To avoid the spot zoning situation.
Madam Chairman, could I ask you, David, a question? David, I'm confused about where this is. Where is the current development on this map?
Yeah, the current, you mean the White Birch Village current development?
Yes.
Okay, so you see on the very bottom end, it says White Birch Drive.
Uh-huh.
Right there.
Yeah, and the brown lots that are between the yellow and the red,
Uh-huh.
that's, generally speaking, that's the White
That's
Birch
it.
Village,
Okay.
yeah.
The
there-
red is the
there-
golf course.
Yeah.
The red.
The red is the golf course. The long skinny piece going up towards the development is the 18th fairway.
Okay.
And then the development that's brown with all the little cubes on it was that timeshare White Birch Estates, where the pool building is and such. So they're all kind of interconnected. Is, part of the White Birch Village, White Birch Village project, their controlling documents, their restrictive and controlling documents, CIC documents, allow to add additional properties. So the goal would be to, and they need to approve it, but the goal would be to, go to them and have them include this as part of the big project so that it would all be kind of managed and controlled and maintained. Building styles would be very
I
similar.
was going to ask, would they be similar structures?
Yeah, very similar. The only difference to these structures is that it's more than likely that either all or most of them would be walkouts because of the topography. You know, because it drops off fairly steep off to the side. So most of them would more than likely be walkouts, with the exception of possibly the most northerly duplex, if, you know, if they lay out correctly. So very similar. I mean, the goal is to have a project that's, you know, not identical, but resembling the project that's already there, that would fit into their development scheme, their management of properties, et cetera.
So Joe,
And be low impact on the residential, on the single-family homes near there.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, you see the one home that is built next to this is way down onto the golf course.
Oh, okay.
Our homes, because of the topography, are gonna be set back quite a bit from that. You know, we'll be back probably where that, where the number is for our tax number on that most closest lot to them. That's where our first home will be situated to them. So they're quite a bit close to the golf course. We're gonna be quite a bit further away from them in that direction. One of the things that occurs is when we keep it closer to the cul-de-sac, it provides two benefits for us. One, it's flatter up there, the elevation stays flatter. We don't have to get as much dirt moving around. And secondly, the developer, but the residents of these things don't want long driveways. I mean, it creates maintenance, parking situations where it becomes, you know, people, you know, tend to park more stuff around. And so we're trying to, again, almost mirror what's been done in the past because it works.
And it would be those 3 lots, David?
Yes.
Okay.
Those 3 lots, and the GIS map hasn't been updated to show the current White Birch Vista plat, which was approved before. So it's those 3 lots plus some additional land that's, the line was just struck there in red, and then some additional lands along the golf course that were included in the White Birch Vista plat.
Is that where your cursor's going, David?
yeah, so it kind of jogs. It's like this area right here, and then it kind of jogs in and out. Here is where they added.
In the wooded area,
Any concerns on traffic? I don't know.
It's residential.
No, it's,
So you go from 3 single-family houses to 8 units, basically?
6, right?
The drive, though, is pretty quick there off of 11, because that, I don't know how you say that, Ore.
Curry.
Yeah, there is only 2, yeah, so the road is
There's not a lot of,
residential drive-through, right?
right?
yeah, and it is residential use. I mean, it's not, you know, we're not throwing in there something that's gonna be outlandish. It's, you know, I suppose if a person were to go in there and try to reconfigure it, there's enough land for us to, you know, right now we can do 3, so we're only adding, you know, those additional units from what's already allowed. But again, you could put 3 very large homes in there with large
Right.
garages and big
Right.
families and accomplish the same amount of traffic that might come out of this development.
And it could be argued that they would have a higher impact.
Oh, well, they would, because they can, you're not gonna be able to control it like you will in a development
Right.
project. Yeah. Because if we rezone it and if it moves forward to a plan, you're gonna be controlling the impervious coverage, the stormwater plans, public sewer, all those things. Right now, those 3 lots would have their own private wells and sewer, and those things tend not to work forever, and, you know, so on and so forth, so.
And most of your units are excuse me for saying this, older couples.
Active adults, yes.
Tom, raise your hand.
I think there's a special, if you do like a 55 plus, then you have to follow some specific designations and such, so I don't think you can call it that, but.
Yeah, being careful not to say anything other than they usually don't have families.
I think
They probably
it
have
makes,
a lot of grandkids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
to me, it seems like it makes sense, and I like the fact that it kind of controls the look and feel too. I mean, you know you're gonna have a nice maintained home, whatever unit there, if it mirrors what you have done in the past, so,
And to bring sewer there.
yeah.
And if you haven't done it lately, take a ride down that road. It's really impressive.
White Birch Town, yeah, those, yeah. I went to their garage sale last weekend, so I checked it out.
Yeah, absolutely, if you want to come to the podium.
Tom Lillahei, 7460 Fairway Lane. That's the White Birch Village. One of the things that wasn't mentioned is that probably because of the targeted audience for these townhouses, probably 50% of them would be seasonal. In other words, snowbirds. That's the way it is in the 52 units that we have right now. I don't want to say the vast majority, but a lot of the people are gone all winter long. So that's going to reduce the traffic. And one of the arguments when the townhouses first came in along White Birch Drive was that it's this big townhouse complex. It's going to reduce the property values of the adjacent residentials, okay? The opposite actually occurred. The property values adjacent, across the street from White Birch Village actually went up because of the development that came in, because it was so good, so well done and good looking that it actually enhanced all those properties along the north part of White Birch Drive.
I think one of the other things that happened that increased property values was the fact that the sewer was brought to that area, which all those three cul-de-sacs, Creek and Papago and the other Suffolk, they did not have sewer until that project came.
Right,
So
and that was
that
gonna be the
increased the
next-
values immensely.
That was going to be the next thing that I would recommend, is that take a look at adding the sewer to that whole area when you do this. And you're going to get some pushback from the property owners, but it will definitely increase their property values. And that's what they found out, especially on Suffolk, where it was all empty lots, and now all of a sudden they're selling. So, anyway, I'm not involved with this.
So I think we're looking at the commission to say, is this something that you should continue to pursue? I would vote yes, please do. I don't see a concern.
As would I.
Yeah, I was kind of against it, but now after listening to other people, the spot zoning thing kind of, now it makes sense, yeah. Plus, I might be living in one of them.
All right, then we are going to move on to old business.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any old business? Any staff reports?
Just a little piece of information. If you remember, we replatted some lots at the entrance of Deacon's Lodge a few years ago.
Oh, yeah, remember that?
Remember that? They're building.
I seen they were, when I was over there golfing there.
Those lots were not the lots that were replatted at
Oh, they weren't?
the time. Those lots were pre-existing lots that were part of the Deacon's Lodge addition.
What did
The ones
we
that
do?
they're building on right now, those were pre-existing lots.
Okay.
Really?
They were part of the
I'm
Deacon's
sorry.
Lodge addition.
Oh, I got the impression
We
that
did-
sorry, go ahead.
3 years ago, I believe this commission looked at a planned unit development and a proposal to do about 8 rental units which was at the entrance into Deacon's Lodge. They decided that the market wasn't right and the cost didn't work, so they've abandoned that project for now.
Right.
But the houses that are going up in that Deacon's Lodge area were pre-existing as part of the Deacon's Lodge addition. And the other house that's going up there, one of our esteemed planning commission members is building in that highly expensive neighborhood.
Mansion.
All right, so any staff reports? Any other commissioner reports? Let's adjourn. Thank you all.
Thank you.